I recently began this year a project on what in the United States we're calling emotion AI. I don't love that name, but it used to be called in the 90s affective computing. And so it's inferring individuals' mental states from data that we have. So it's called affective computing. So it was developed in the 90s, in the early 90s, but it's not computing. And so your affect is obviously, the information you're giving out about your emotional state and your reaction to things. So, but what has happened by this point is that because of declines in computing costs and all the other things that are leading to the other phenomena that we see around us, that we're able to get, and just the sheer proliferation of data that's out there about you, we're able to gather just enormous amounts of data, and then from that infer mental states. And so there are some companies now that are emerging to do this. Some of them are in the mental health space, or behavioral health space. But there's a real lack of recognition about what the impact of this is. If people think about it at all, they tend to think, oh, well, they're going to take a biometric, or they're going to do an fMRI or something like that. And so that could be part of it, but just even all the plain old data about you, the ability to accumulate it and analyze it, allows us to infer a lot about mental states. So there are very few guards on how that information can be used, certainly in the United States. In large part, it's just open season. It can be given away, sold, matched in line with all of your other data and so forth. So people generally don't tend to recognize this. So this is a project we're working on right now. A good analogy, because this has risen to the popular consciousness, is facial recognition. So we know that there's a lot of fallibility in the technology. The shorthand, the tech is broken. There are plenty of studies with Amazon's recognition and others that show, false positives, false negatives, does best with Caucasian men and different hierarchies, does least well with, Black women. So there are problems with that. Even after Amazon fixed it, or tried to improve it, it's still very problematic. So the tech is broken, and people realize that's my face. So a durable identifier. It's not like your PIN, you can throw it away and choose 4 more numbers or whatever. And so the use increasingly of durable identifiers about your gait, which is a great identifier, obviously face geometry, all of the other biometrics. But it's not only the biometrics, but so in the facial recognition area, people have realized, hey, the technology is broken. Again, I'm overstating that. It seems like that's my face. And there's a lot of public reaction to that. So in the United States, some cities have adopted bans on the use of facial recognition. This has been going on this year. So San Francisco, California, Oakland, California, Somerville, Massachusetts. There are other cities that are looking at doing that. There are quite a few organizations are calling for a moratorium on facial recognition at this point until we get a better handle on the technology itself and its robustness and utility, its fidelity, and then how we want to use it. San Francisco is also calling for a ban on its use in police body cameras as well. So that's a good analogy that, again, the popular consciousness has now realized, wait a minute, is this too invasive? Because we have this notion that you can walk untrammeled and not be observed all the time, the freedom of movement, freedom of association. It implicates all of these issues, in addition to the privacy issues. And so we need to think about that. Do we want to be always surveyed, right? And I can give you a lot of figures on how many databases you're already in and so forth. But, again, we have some of these, should they be used, and all of these questions. So if people are upset about that, what about inferring your mental state? Right? There are many issues there. And even there are some uses being done. For example, some college football teams, they are now they've been given devices that they're using that are monitoring them both physiologically and behaviorally. This is just one example. There are other examples. And it also can look for indicators of depression or anxiety and so forth. So there's a big range of questions there. Another thing that I've been interested in and working on for the last several years is the project I call it Averting Cyber War. So I've worked in the security field for a very long time, the computer security field, and I'm very concerned about the bellicose rhetoric that's going on.